I thought I'd seen you before, and then I remembered you had this other life on the screen.
You know, your creative product is external to you.
And they're asking me questions about where they see Australia fitting in global politics and, you know, how important the relationship is with the United States.
But then one day it was almost like I woke up and I had 2 kids under 2 and I hadn't slept for ages, and I was working in a chiropractor's clinic and I didn't have any family or any friends around, and I just didn't recognise myself.
Do you remember when we first met?
Oh, I think so. Because didn't we know each other, or hadn't we spoken before we met the first time? I don't know, probably.
I think so. It was a catch-up of crime writers. Author drinks. And it just got bigger and bigger and bigger.
Was it not the bad crime?
I think it was around the festival, yeah.
Yeah, around the festival. And we went to...
it was in Piermont.
Yes, because I sort of organised the drinks and you had a friend who...
Owned the pub.
Owned the pub.
Yeah.
And so that was, yeah.
That's right.
That was our joint little event.
And it was.
Oh, how fun.
And at the end, we were the stayers at the end of the night.
We were the stayers. We were last ones out.
I think we were.
Yes, we were. So what was your first impression of me?
Well, I thought I'd seen you before, and then I remembered you had this other life on the screen.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people don't know this about you. You're an actor first.
I was an actor first.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What do you like more?
Oh God, no. I mean, that's a big question and a big sort of can of worms.
You did some good stuff. EastEnders.
Yeah, I did.
There's big stuff in the UK, yeah?
Yeah, I did EastEnders. I did the kind of British hospital dramas. It's very big on the British medical scene.
You play a great doctor.
No, I was always I was always a person that was, that was in the hospital that was either sick. So one time I played a young mother with my son had meningitis, and then on Holby City I was the daughter of a convicted murderer.
Whoa.
And the murderer had just got out and had something wrong with him, and he was in the hospital, and all there was a whole kind of moral quandary about do we treat him or not.
So did you think the whole acting thing, how did that prepare you to be a writer? Is that...
Wow, you've gone in deep. Quick.
Is this too deep?
No, I thought we were just going to... No, fine. I would say... So I would say, in a nutshell, I have much more autonomy as a writer than as an actor. For reasons of, with acting, you can't just go away and practice your craft. You need collaborators, you kind of need permission, you need, you don't necessarily need a specific place to rehearse or to devise or to kind of put things together. But if you want to perform, you need a space, you need audience. With writing, you don't need any of that stuff. So that, I think, frees you up creatively. Another thing that I talk a lot about is, your creative product is external to you. So there's a lot less risk that you're going to equate your own self-worth with your success or failure as a creative or as an artist.
Yeah.
So it's healthier, I think, for me. The rejection doesn't feel so personal. I feel like there's a whole lot more objectivity with writing about looking at a thing that you've made with a team of people and objectively being able to step around it and go, well, how can we make this thing better? And then you can put it down at the end of your working day and go home. Whereas, when you're an actor, you carry your instrument with you everywhere. If somebody says, I don't like this, it's right. Like, well, I can't do anything about that because it's me. Yeah. And then with the question about how does it help me, I think that I'm trained to collaborate in that sense. I'm trained to take direction. I don't take it personally when people say this isn't working, and I'm like, okay, interesting, there's a problem, let's fix it, as opposed to I'm terrible, I'm awful. Look, I'm human, I get that sometimes, but I think it helps having had a creative career where that's been an essential part. I also think that I'm more it's easier for me to access emotional experiences and apply them to my stories than it might be to other people, just because I've had so much training in it. I'm really good at imagining myself into situations that perhaps I haven't lived as well.
I think that's the one thing about being a writer, though, is it's your thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, that's what I love about writing, is that when I sit down, it's me and my imagination, me and my life experience, and I draw from all those different places to be able to come up with something. And the difference, I guess, with what you're touching on there with acting is in a book, or with a book, you actually only need one person to love it.
Yeah.
And that's the person who's going to publish it, and then they're going to take you to the world. So we're used to people liking, loving, not liking our work, and that's okay.
Oh, that's...
Because we all write different types of books.
Well, we write different types of books, but also the book only really kind of assumes meaning when it's read by somebody, and there are all different kinds of readers. So in a way, you're writing millions of books.
Yeah.
You know, like this, you know, these books have been read by different people, and they take on different meanings and have different resonances for those people. So you can't take that personally. I was at an event the other day, and a guy said to me, like, he put his hand up at the end and said that Red River Road, he was really disappointed that it didn't have as much of the landscape as he would have wanted. And he was like, I feel like you've really missed out on an opportunity there. And another person at another event said, I could have done with a bit less of the landscape. Do you know what I mean? And so it's just, you go, that's valid, that's great, thank you so much. Yeah, and thank you for reading it, because it's going to mean something different to everybody. How do you think that your previous job affects your writing, or helps, or maybe hinders your writing?
Yeah, I don't think that I could write these books without having done all of that stuff first.
Yeah.
Like, I knew I wanted to write books when I was a kid.
Right.
And I had a crack in my early 20s, but was I good enough then, or as a kid when I was thinking about wanting to be a writer?
Yeah.
I knew I had to get all this life experience in first. And that includes not just work, but having my children and, you know, and my family, that it kind of teaches you and shows you, like, love and sadness and pain and happiness and all of those things that I think life, you know, just living and being here, I'm 45 now, has given me. And with my day job, which I don't do anymore, I was a journalist for 25 years, I was really lucky. I got to meet some really incredible, interesting people, work with some really damaged people, war correspondents, people that really gave so much of their life and sacrificed their life to be able to tell stories in that obsessive kind of sense. And police detectives are a bit like that as well. So for me, I was drawing on some of those characters, those people I'd worked with, to create the character of John Bailey that's the recurring character in my books, and some other characters too. So it's been like research and getting me to this point. And also some of those conversations. I remember being in the US, having this really interesting conversation with someone from US State Department, and they're asking me questions about where they see Australia fitting in global politics, and, you know, how important the relationship is with the United States, the worries about China. So all of those things, just those questions being asked, just stay with me, and I go, I'll grab that for a story.
So great.
So
all the way through being a journalist, did you have that in the back of your mind that you wanted to write books?
I never really stopped writing, because I wrote a book in my early 20s that will never see the light of day because it's not good enough. But there's parts of it that I think were good as I was figuring out what kind of writer that I would be.
Right.
And then stopped, started writing another one, had kids, stopped entirely when they were really little, and then started again. So really, I was always right. I might have had 2 or 3 year gaps where I stopped, but then I was always toiling with something.
Yeah, right.
Thinking about what.
So what made you want to become a journalist specifically? Because you weren't just a journalist, like you were managing editor of.
Yeah, I loved telling stories. I was so interested in the world outside Australia's shores, because Australia it's much more connected to the international community now, and connected through the arts, through film, through journalism, than it's ever been. But growing up, Australia felt like a much smaller place.
Right.
And so I was always interested in what was going on outside Australia's shores. So journalism just seemed like the logical place for me to go learn about the world, figure out what kind of writer I can be, and then get back to writing books, because I always knew that I'd go back to it. When did the seed first get planted for you to write a book?
It's really funny. I mean, I remember, I've got memories of being a child and saying I want to be a writer, and I think I do have memories of declaring that I wanted to be a journalist, because I couldn't kind of conceive of being able to write a book, because that seemed tantamount to suggesting that I should try playing a piano concerto. Do you know what I mean? It just seemed ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because I think I was such an avid reader, and that was kind of the height of, artistic
I think to be a writer,
me.
you need to be a reader, don't you? It starts with being a reader.
I can't imagine what kind of human being could possibly want to write without first loving reading. But yeah, so I did have that, and I remember, like, my grandparents tell stories of when I was a kid. You know, we used to go on holidays, and I would take all these notebooks with me, and then at kind of, sundowner time, the adults had, crack their gin and tonics, and I'd retire to write my novel.
Really? How old were you?
Like 9.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. But then I got bitten by the acting bug, and I that was kind of my identifier for many, many years, until the point at which I decided that the lifestyle of being an actor was really starting to become quite damaging for me, like the unpredictability, the kind of financial instability. It just gave rise to a lot of anxiety for me. And I was like, I just don't know that these 1 or 2 really great jobs per year is worth the kind of stress and strain the rest of the time. So I decided to take a bit of a sabbatical, took a break, got some life experience, fell in love, traveled, did all kinds of different things that I would never have done before. And I then moved to Australia, and just kind of this life unfolded quite organically, where, I had kids and I got married, and but then one day it was almost like I woke up and I had 2 kids under 2, and I hadn't slept for ages, and I was working in a chiropractor's clinic, and I didn't have any family or any friends around, and I just didn't recognize myself. So I was looking more for a creative outlet, creative outlet. And I think writing seemed natural to me for those reasons of autonomy that we were talking about before. Yeah. And so I just, then it made a lot of sense to me. And there was even then, when I was submitting my first manuscript to agents, I still didn't really think that I had the chops. And I was like, I didn't really equate acting, like storytelling through acting, with storytelling through writing. It seemed like such a different medium.
So exhausted, sleep deprived.
Yeah.
I'm going to write a book.
Yeah. But like, same with you, right? Where you're like, we've laughed so many times about how busy you were. And we were like, when are you writing, Tim? And you're like,
5 a.m. Sundays.
5 a.m. on the weekends. Yeah.
But you do it because you love it.
And you do it because you have to as well, because it makes you happy and it brings you back to who you are.
Yeah, you make time. And what about the kind of book so if someone said to you, what kind of books do you write? How do you answer that question neatly? That's
really hard. I'll try. Psychological thrillers that are both character-led and horror adjacent.
Wow. Okay. I can see that.
Yeah. For me, it's really hard because I find kind of genre and marketing all a bit of like, I don't know that necessarily that always has as much to do with what the actual books are than we think. What about you? What do you say? Well, it's easier for you, right?
Well, I mean, I write thrillers.
Yeah.
But
okay, maybe I should just
thriller, full stop. No, but I always say with my books, everything in them either has happened, will happen, or could happen. So my thrillers are very, very connected to now, very connected to, I guess, big ideas around whether it's terrorism, whether it's spy game, whether it's Australia caught in the middle of the US-China power struggle, or in this book, I'm really looking at misogyny, incels, how violence against women is this awful festering sore that that law enforcement, politicians, no one is actually seeming to have a plan to try to fix this awful problem. And so I try to pick a big issue and then put a crime thriller in that. Yeah.
I think I do too. I was talking to our beautiful friend Candice Fox at one point, and she's like, what's your next book about? And I was like, I really want to say something about, and she was like, what?
Yeah.
Wait a minute, what? Is that where you start from?
Yeah.
Because she always starts from, the character or a particular kind of a hooky situation. I'm like, I just feel like I really need to say something about a particular thing, which is interesting because in a way, these two are quite complementary, aren't they?
Yeah.
Because I'm certainly exploring notions of women's safety and gendered violence and the stories that we tell each other around, what can and what does happen to women, where the danger actually lies, and how often we use kind of stories that, yes, they have this huge value in terms of entertainment and escapism, but they're also perhaps contributing unhelpfully to kind of sociocultural messaging around, as we say, gendered violence and women's safety. So
I'm with you on that. I think as a writer, I try to think what I want to say with this book. That's why it's a big issue. But hey, it's been a lot of fun.
Oh, I feel like this just hasn't been enough time.
Yeah, well, we'll have to pick it up at the pub.
100%, as we frequently do.
Out of down. It's been good to hang out.
It's been good to hang out with you, Tim. Always.